Well, so let me ask you about the Iraq Veterans Against the War. You've mentioned the IVAW a few times. That's the Iraq Veterans Against the War. And how did you become associated with them?
Well, I was actually out of the military. I was in Brooklyn. I got my call up in February, and for about a month there, I locked myself in my room and entered a very dark state of alienation and depression over what I thought was an order I had no choice but to carry out and follow. So after about a month of being locked away in my room and watching, news stories and screaming at the top of my lungs and, believing that I would go to Iraq and would probably participate in, some heinous action, and nobody would ever know that I was against this from the start, when one of my instructors at Brooklyn College told me about an anti-war event going on in Dumbo. It's a district in Brooklyn. And I went, and there I met the Iraq Veterans Against the War, who I never even knew existed. And, here was veterans as well as active duty military personnel on leave from their units to participate in Winter Soldier, which happened the weekend before. And, they were speaking about peace and were speaking about justice, while some of them still being on active duty. And I realized these are my kind here. These people are reflecting and are saying the things that I and so many of my friends have been thinking for years now. And I don't have any reason not to join them and not to participate in voicing my opposition to a legal war.
So they really set the precedent for you and said, see, you can do it too.
Well, they provided the support necessary to me to voice my opinions, which I've had since the beginning. I mean, I remember being in journalism school when we invaded Iraq. And I remember feeling completely shocked and awed as the Iraqi people were being shocked and awed by U.S. bombs falling in their neighborhoods, and thinking, this is really, really, really bad, but I'm going to have to just bury my feelings on this because these people own me for the next 4.5 years, and dissent will not be tolerated. So, I buttoned it up. I buttoned up my point of view, and I towed the line, as they say in the military, until I realized, and as I said, it wasn't until after I got out of the military, that all of these things being thrown at me by my superiors about, you traded your voice when you joined the Army. You don't have First Amendment rights. You don't have the right to speak. You don't have the right to act. You only have the right to follow orders. Well, I bought all of that, and then to see active duty folks, working with Iraq Veterans Against the War to voice their opinions very legally, I realized, wow, I mean, this is the support. These are the people that are going to empower me to make a stand for what I know is absolutely right, and that I would not be alone in this fight to end an illegal occupation, as I thought I would be. That in fact, thousands of veterans and military and active duty military people across the country share the exact same sentiments as I, and are now organizing to ensure that they are heard and that the American people know the truth of what's actually going on, rather than what the leaders of our country would like them to believe.
Yep. Well, it's coming across again just in the last week or two in the news, just how dishonest this government was in getting us into this war. And, the more and more stories like that, the more and more people are going to wake up. And, well, just like IVAW was there for you, these people, I'm sure at least some of them are going to value the fact that you're there serving as an example and as help to them.
Well, I do hope so. I'm guessing you're referring to the book that Scott McClellan just came out with.
Sure.
And that was that was a shock to me, and that was very exciting because actually he's talking about, and he outlines a lot of points that I am trying to make myself. Hey, I was forced to write propaganda to keep people from knowing what was actually going on, both in the military and in Iraq, and for him, a senior member of the Bush administration, to also be echoing those same complaints only goes to show that we are not, a crazy minority that is just interested in griping because we had a bad experience in the military, that we are, in fact, testifying about injustice, which knowledge of has been kept away from the American people. And it's a very exciting time. It is there's a whole lot of synergy going on right now between our organization and a number of other organizations. As well, our own membership is starting to boom like we haven't seen since the beginning of this organization. And I am so proud. My heart swells to finally be able to go to sleep at night knowing that I'm fighting on the right side.
Well, good for you. And, I'd like hopefully to stay in touch with you so
Absolutely.
that we can find out, developments in your case as it proceeds, if it does at all. I hope that they just ignore you and let you go.
Well, June 15th, I'm supposed to report to Fort Jackson for re-processing and deployment to Iraq. Father's Day, ironically. Instead, I will be making a speech somewhere in Washington, D.C. I'm hoping at the Lincoln Memorial. And when I do so, I'm hoping to have as many people, citizens there as possible listening, and as well as much media as possible. So maybe Antiwar Radio could consider picking that up live when it happens. Yeah, we'd love to give it all the attention we can. And, I guess personally, I'd just like to thank you for following your own conscience instead of going along with these criminals. Scott, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you helping us have our stories told as we deserve to have them told, as people who are not standing on the outside of this thing casting stones, as people who have directly experienced the horrors of what's going on, not just in Iraq, but in the military at large right now, and are voicing, our opposition to this administration, their policies of endless war, and their policies of doing as little as possible to take care of veterans when they come home from Iraq and need serious, mental and physical care. Listen, we still got a few minutes, and as long as you brought that up, I'm perfectly happy to continue that discussion if you'd like to. Okay. I actually considered earlier in the interview asking about the numbers of PTSD. There's been scandals, it's been covered in the Washington Post and so forth, about how the VA was trying to lie and fudge the numbers and pretend that we didn't have nearly as much PTSD, a.k.a. shell shock, as we're actually having. But they're saying now over 300,000 American soldiers returning from Iraq and Afghanistan have these problems. And I wonder, do you know much about that? It's not something that you're suffering from, I guess. Sure. Well, I think on some level, all of us suffer from some form of PTSD, especially when being forced to support this occupation that so many of us are against, and that is a lie that has been told to the American people, that the soldiers and service members in Iraq want to be there. They want to, quote unquote, finish this mission, and so on and so forth. But yes, the numbers are high, and I personally would say that's still a gross underestimate of the numbers of people coming back, not just from Iraq, but from various places all over the world, with serious issues that the government does not want to address because it reflects the realities of what they're asking people to go through. And furthermore, I would like to say I'd like to talk about the misdiagnosis of PTSD as adjustment disorder. And this is a story that's been breaking over the last few weeks that we've been talking about for a long time in IVAW. And in fact, my best friend Chris Goldsmith has been doing a lot of interviews, because when he got back from Iraq, he was showing all of the signs of post-traumatic stress disorder, full-blown PTSD. And instead, he was given a diagnosis of adjustment disorder.